Do you think Isibaya would have done way, way better had it been with SABC?
Definitely, without naming titles, sometimes you would watch something on the other channel and think that should have been with us. By the time I left, the SABC was still beating them on the numbers. But it was popular, and I'm sure it could have done much better numbers-wise on SABC.
There was a period, I may not remember when, where Sunday afternoons belonged to the pay channel. In terms of programming, how do you counter a channel that consistently has shows that pull numbers?
The SABC has a mandate to achieve. And I think it's important that in the planning of the schedule, there are slots where you'll take a knock. But it's important to ensure that overall, you remain on the top.
Hello and welcome to the Media Pod. My name is Christopher Chwane, your host. A Media Pod is a podcast that focuses on the media legends: television, radio, newspapers, digital, acting, news. Today we've got the legendary Mam Clara as our guest. She started as a production assistant up until she left SABC as head of SABC One. So we are going to allow Mam Clara to tell us about herself, but we are going to start where it all began. Mam Clara, welcome to MediaPod and good morning.
Morning, Chris.
How have you been?
I'm good. It's nice to be a retiree.
How does it feel? Chilling at home, looking after grandkids.
Yeah, no, it's the best thing.
Best thing ever.
To look forward to.
Most of us know you as former commissioning editor and ultimately head of channel. Where did it all begin? Where did Mam Clara grow up and how did she become a broadcaster?
Okay, I have a very simple background. I'm born in Springs, Guatemala, and the second of 6 children. And we were lucky that our parents loved education, and they wanted us to go to school.
Yes.
And fortunately, we all listened. So we qualified in various places. But then I started school locally, and for matric I went to KZN, Inkamana High School. And after Inkamana, I went to the University of Zululand. Started off wanting to study social work. And I dropped off social work.
But why?
I am the kind of person who wants to understand something, and I found, because at that time we were taught by Afrikaner lectures, and I found it difficult in that, you had to regurgitate, whether it's notes or whatever they gave you, in order to make it. And I can't cram. I could never, even at school, cramming poems was a mission for me. I would cram it for the purpose. And once I've recited in front of the teacher and it's over, and I forget. So cramming was a bit difficult for me, and so I switched. Actually, I switched to BA with the aim of teaching. So after completing, I taught for a year, and I didn't find it very challenging. So after a year, I left and I looked for a job. And in one of the searches for a job, I ended up at the Institute of Race Relations.
Yes.
And went there for an interview, chit-chat with the receptionist there. And she says to me, you know what, the SABC is looking for people. Maybe you should try there as well. So I applied to the SABC. They invited me for an interview. And, other than an article on the Sowetan on some lady from here in Benoni who had been hired as a production secretary, I had no idea what television work was about. So I went, and obviously you'll get asked, which position would you like to work at? And I had no clue. So I said production secretary.
So you chose your own position.
Yeah. I said production secretary. For me, it's an unknown area for me. And possibly starting there at the bottom is a way for me to learn.
To learn, yes.
Which it worked for me, and so fortunately at the time, the SABC, because, television was not taught at university like it's done now. So television, the SABC had a training center for television and training all aspects of television. And we stayed there for 6 months, learning everything there is to learn about television.
Was that more of an induction purpose?
It was training, like proper training. We had the theory part, we had the practicals, and, we used to go out and shoot like short dramas or, people who were looking at doing the news would shoot the news in the studio. There was a fully fledged studio down there. So all aspects of television, as you would watch at home, we would practice there in the 6 months. So we did that, and after the 6 months, we were placed in the various departments. I was placed in the Youth and Children's Department as production secretary. And I worked there, and maybe just before the placement, at the end of the training, there's awards, And I got an award for Best Production Secretary and worked in the Youth and Children. So we're doing youth magazines. I forget what the title was, but it was a youth magazine, a weekly youth magazine. And, we expanded. We did youth dramas. But I think the most iconic thing we did then during that period was a kiddies program with puppet strings, And it was the first to be done for African languages. We trained on a successful Afrikaans kiddies program, which was called Vili Valley. So we'd go there and observe how they produce it. And we did not translate. It was my producer, Betty Mtembu, wrote the Zulu title. But what we used was the same mechanics of producing, which is puppet strings. And it was very successful. As time went on and the department grew, we focused mainly on drama. Actually, the SABC has always had this bets of there's no money, we're retrenching, And at some stage, I got transferred to the dubbing department. And we're dubbing the cartoons for kiddies because, my specialty was youth and children. So I was placed to translate the dubbing of kiddies programs, which I did. And but whilst I was there, I got called to the youth drama department. They had a script that they liked the concept, but they were not very happy with
the script,
the implementation of the script. So when I got there, the manager gave me the script and said, just go and read the script. Come back and tell me what you think. So I took the script, I went, I read, and I went back and told her what I thought. It was called Zikhetele. It was an international series based in a school of performing arts, Fame. Yeah, it was loosely based on Fame, and but South African. And when I gave my comments, she said to me, "You're not going to translate this," because they had fetched me as a translator.
Yes.
And she said, "You're not going to translate this. You're going to rewrite this." And I said, this is the first time I see a drama script. I don't know what to do, where to start. And she said, "We'll work together." So I got placed at the production house that was going to produce this. And, I looked at the script and started mimicking, but writing my own story, but based on what was there.
More like rewriting
Rewriting, yeah, but not completely undoing it, But it's more like making it culturally relevant, to the audience. So it doesn't sound like a translation.
Yes.
Even whatever happens in the story, it's something that's
the viewers can relate to.
Yes. So I started doing that, and every evening before I go home, we would sit. So it would be the producers, myself, and my manager. The manager of the drama department would sit and go through what I've written. Writing process is hard. Some things they agree to, other things they chuck out, and you feel like they're taking a piece of.
They always chuck out 90% of what is submitted.
Yeah, sorry. And so it went on doing that every day. and up to the point where the script was ready to be shot. And they shot the script, and the manager said, I'd like you to be on set. You'd remember at the time we had cultural advisors on set. So I was on set, and just out of the blue, I get a call, to come back to the office. When I get to the office, this is now the dubbing department. Dubbing department is restructuring, they're cutting down, and there's retrenchments coming, and obviously you don't know where you stand. So what I did is I went to the drama manager department. They said, I was called, this is what's happening, and as a result, I don't know where I stand. Whether I'll be affected or not, I don't know. But in the meantime, I think I want to wait the process and see where it ends. So I'm not going back there. I will come back to the office and wait the process. And, knowing what was at stake, she fought for me. She fought for me, and fought to the extent that I got transferred from dubbing into drama. So I just immediately became a drama person. So I went back to set, we finished shooting, and the show was a success. It was a success. It got the numbers, got the revenue, and obviously the channel wanted second season. And, the agreement was, we'll go through the same process. So my writing was, I was writing not as, an ordinary writer would from home and get paid. So I was not getting paid. I was writing, but I was getting my salary, so that was the process. And, and the show went on to win awards for the producer, for director, and I think it was season 3 where I got an award for writing. It was called the Edem Award. The awards were small things at the time, not as big as we have now. But I got an award and, stayed with the department. And at the time, we were also given a chance to write at your own time, and you get paid for it. So I wrote a proposal because I looked at my area, which is Guatemala and the surrounds, and there was a lot of teenage suicides happening. And I used that as, for my concept. So that series was called Mina Nawe. And yeah, it also did well. So time went, and changes. Up to a point where, the new democracy, the dawn of the new democracy, and there were changes structurally. I think what happened then is because we're a very powerful drama department. At some stage, we got combined. Initially it was the Zulu, Sotho, so we became one drama department. And I think with the new democracy, the first board, the board, Nkoslu chairman.
When the Zolaki was the CEO.
Yeah. But that board for me was like pivotal in my development and understanding public broadcast. They made it their business to also understand public broadcasting and what it's meant to achieve, and so on and so on. And, and engaged us staff. For me, they also realized the importance of drama, because drama has the power to change things. Telling our own stories has a huge impact. And drama was one of the things they were focusing on. And the chairperson of the programming unit in the board, I think, was Professor Ndebele. And, we used to, as the drama department, have meetings with members of the production team in the board, where we discuss our challenges and where we want to go, and they have input, they direct. And I think that was very important for us, and it built on what the outcomes that we give, because drama was not just drama to make people laugh, or it was driving messages, though it's entertaining, but we knew at the source of it all, it had to tell a story that would make a change in people's lives. And I think that's important, because as a public broadcaster, we don't just broadcast in J
for the sake of broadcasting.
For the sake of broadcasting. So, that built that kind of understanding, that kind of consciousness in everything that we do. And with the improvements and the changes structurally, then we had the new channels, SABC 1, 2, 3. And we used to belong to what was called CCV TV, which was also there at the beginning. And CCV TV, the aim was largely to integrate, that's why it was English, Zulu, and all languages, so that, like the Rainbow Nation, yaga,
was with Afrikaans.
Yeah, like Rainbow Nation, yeah, the arch, so we're that channel. So we changed to SABC 1 and largely Zulu with the mandates. I can read now there's these developments, ICASA mandates getting stronger, and the focus shifts to languages. So mainly Zulu, but we did not completely lose that influence. Yes, CCTV yogu integrator, you see. But we made sure that we achieved the Zulu mandate. In fact, it was the Nguni, not just Zulu.
At the time, the SABC 1 had presenters who
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was largely Nguni.
Muzimasina.
Yes. So, and we tried to do programs in all those languages, which was sometimes a challenge talent-wise, but we made it work. And yeah, and I think the first program manager for SABC One, the new SABC One, was Zamambo Mkize. So I worked under Zamambo, still doing drama. And Zamambo left, other people came in, and I stayed with drama for a long time. I think until it was Zamambo left. And there was a gap in the program manager department. So I acted in that position as a program manager now, looking at broader than just drama. And I did that for about 18 months. And then there was, new people, new management come in, and the channel also had new management, and a new program manager was appointed, and and then I also at that time got the opportunity to choose where I want to be.
Again.
Yes.
Yes, again.
No, it's not a question of luck. It's negotiating your path, because I acted for 18 months, and legally, and I think humanly, and I didn't take it to CCMA or what, but I fought that
internal.
Yes. And I had my wins, but then God asked Guru, so which do you want to take? And I said, children. And it was a strategic thing for me. I said, children. And I did UTV, and UTV I loved, because, yeah, and it was like a channel within a channel. So I had one of my best times with UTV, other than drama, but UTV was...
Was that before Intersections and Izo or after?
It could be before. Yes. Because, or parallel, because... Yeah. So I did UTV, and changes again. Program manager position is open. I applied, I got it, and I was a program manager for a long time. And yeah, change is like a permanent feature of the SABC. There were changes again. I think it was the coming of Saudi. And
I like how you put it.
There were problems with with international acquisitions, and I got asked to go assist there. In terms of putting systems in place and making sure things get delivered on time, because international content is what gave us our bread and butter. And if we promise we're going to show this and it doesn't arrive, it's a mess. And all the channels were experiencing the same problem. So I was asked to go and assist by Bessie Tukwana, who was head of television at the time, yes. And I went and I assisted. I'm not sure what the period was, but it was a lengthy period. And, things worked well. And at the time, the head of SABC 1 was Sam Perwane, whom I had appointed as my program manager, assistant program manager. And, when head of TV got open after Leo Mane left, he applied. Truly, I was not interested. Honestly, I just felt, no, I'm also getting older. I don't want. Let young people take over. He got the position and I had no problem working under him. I mean, I had appointed him. I knew his capability. So
this actually reflects positively on you.
I never had a problem because, for me, once I have confidence in you as my manager, nothing else matters, So we worked with Sam, and then Sam got the position of head of channel.
There was a period where SABC 1 had intersections and Iso. There was a lot of noise. How did you at the time deal with that?
I think maybe I should start with how it came about. As a channel, we had a positioning statement, like who we are. Because that's what, if you know who you are, then you know what you're offering. And also to whom.
Yes.
Which is important. But one of the things was SABC 1 positioned herself as authentic and also controversial, but not controversial for controversy's sake. So the programming that we offer had to be authentic, that is, tell our story in a manner that is relevant to our audiences. But also, when we say controversial, we meant...
create talkability.
Exactly. Talkability and just prick the people's...
to think.
Exactly. So when proposals like Iso came, they were answering to that positioning.
Yes.
And of course, that kind of storytelling was new at the time. And people will react. Some were positive, others saw it as a negative. And I think it's important when people complain to respond. So channel producers would respond to negative comments. And, unfortunately for Iso, the complaints went up to Parliament. But I think they were dealt with even at that level because, it was important to make people understand why what happened. And I think Iso in particular was a trendsetter in that kind of storytelling. And it played a huge role in just the direction the industry was going and what it is now. So yeah, that intersections. I don't remember much controversy, but it's just telling the stories as it was, and also addressing an issue that is not much talked about, because there are issues we don't talk about. And when we said we're controversial, those are the issues we were
uprooting and putting on the table.
Yeah.
But with Izo, would you say those who were against it, saying it was promoting gangsterism, were wrong? And in hindsight, do you not think the message could have been delivered but differently without being too graphic?
Yeah. I think the message was correct. However, it could be the implementation that, because I personally believe you don't have to be graphic to tell the story. You just hint and people will get it because people are living this thing,
Yes.
Therefore, it's not important to graphically show
very explicit.
Every step of, So, yeah, I think there could have been an overstep in that regard, in the implementation. Yeah.
You were part of a team that started Generations. How did that come about?
Generations. Generations came, I think we were still CCV-TV.
Yes.
We were aspirational. There was changes in the country, and it was important to give hope to the viewer, to say there are possibilities out there, and the focus was the advertising industry,
yes.
which I dare say it's still white up to now. It's largely white. And we're trying to say, black child, you can enter this field too, So it was very aspirational, and in response to the state of the nation. The nation was changing. There was hope in the country, that things would be better. And we're just showing, here's one area, you can better your life. And
looking back, I'm sure you're proud it's still standing when you compare it with other channels' programs. Generation is still standing. It stood the test of time. I'm sure you're proud to have been part of it.
Yeah, I'm proud to have been part of that, but I must say, right now, I'm not quite sure where it's going.
In terms of storyline?
Yeah. I don't want to be controversial, but
let's create talkability. Let's talk about it. Because
I watch it sometimes, and I think, what's the difference between you, Generations, and Mzansi, or one of those? Yeah. Because there's a time where, and I'll talk for SABC One, where the DNA of an SABC drama you could identify
within a few seconds.
Exactly. But now I watch TV and I think these things are all the same. There's just changes here and there. But
Is it not because they're chasing numbers?
I think so. It's the number game, and I think in the process,
You lose your own DNA.
yeah.
We had shows like Backstage. How much did they push SABC and the drama department to think differently at the time?
I don't think that much thinking differently. I think Backstage was a challenge for SABC One in terms of scheduling.
Yes.
Because it was at 6:30 in a slot where SABC One was saying we're targeting the youth and we're giving them wholesome content. Ne? It's entertaining, but it's wholesome.
Yes.
So it would be different. It would be different genres, magazine here, a docu there, reality, so it was different things every day. Ne?
Cocktail of
Yes.
things.
They relevant, they good, they well executed, but the challenge to us was the genre. They came with a soap, which is one thing every day, and viewers are
Consistent.
animal of habit.
Yes.
And that's where it began to give us challenges.
Then how did you counter them?
We struggled for a couple of years, taking a knock, except for certain days, because there's days that we were winning, there are days that we were losing. But it was a challenge in terms of numbers. Until we decided to go head to head. And that's where Skeem Saam came in.
And to this day.
And to this day. And I think I'm more proud of Skeem Saam, actually, because Skeem Saam has managed to offer entertainment without losing their DNA. There's no graphic thing, we're just
very authentic.
Telling an authentic story. So it can be done. You don't have possible. To be, it's very possible. You don't have to be graphic and when you think you're chasing the numbers. Skeem Saam has proved it.
As a programmer, when other productions are on the same timeline as your shows and they keep moving their times because they cannot compete, how did that make you feel? Because something happened with Generations. There was a program that challenged Generations. They moved to 7:30. There was a program that challenged Skeem Saam. They moved from 6:30. How does that make you feel as a program? To say, we've got product A on this time slot, and competition moves around because they cannot compete with us.
That was after my time. But yeah, I don't know. I think maybe moving slots is not the solution. Maybe looking at how you protect whatever, so look at what's before, look at what's, and make a strong time band rather than a slot. Because a slot can be easily attacked, But yeah, maybe look at a time band and how you own a certain time band.
There was a period, I may not remember when, where Sunday afternoons belonged to the pay channel. They had PSL rights. They would dominate which games would be on SABC, which games would be on pay channel. And then immediately after soccer, they had idols. Immediately after idols, they would have that show dealing with marriages. And then they would have local dramas. In terms of programming, how do you counter a channel that consistently has shows that pull numbers as compared to you because of time and because of the mandate from ICASA? Because ultimately, SABC has a mandate. And the mandate seems to be the red tape, because if you don't comply with the mandate, then you have to deal with ICASA. Ultimately, if you comply with ICASA, you are losing numbers to competition.
Yeah. I think you also answered yourself in the question, because the SABC has a mandate to achieve. And I think it's important that in the planning of the schedule, there are slots where you'll take a knock. But it's important to ensure that overall, you remain on the top. Because you can't win every slot. We have multiple channels, and you don't have control of the remote. But you go in it to win it. Sometimes you don't win. You win some, you lose some. But it's important that you plan that overall. So I'll take a knock here, I'll make up for it there. And at the end of the day, when you evaluate your performance, you must still come up tops.
What was the thinking behind the very first sitcom that we had in the vernacular, which is Emzini Wezinsizwa? Because I think it paved ways for City Sesla and others. And it was huge because it was authentic.
Yeah, Emzini was just one of those miracle shows. It started at the same time as Generation, so the thinking was the same, reflecting the country to itself, but also it being a sitcom. It was important for us to be able, us as South Africans, to be able to laugh at ourselves. We took a situation which it may be looked at as unpalatable, the hostels.
The lifestyle.
But Generations, the performance, it was just across class divide. Everybody loved, because it was authentic. Who wouldn't love Abu Chawe and Abu Mfukeng? Yeah, because they were just themselves, and you look at them and you relate to these characters. Yes.
So every character had a purpose.
Yes.
Why do you think SABC One became the most successful channels across SABC on TV?
I think there's several factors. One would be the Zulu factor. I think we come from language divide. We may still suffer from that. And the Zulus being the largest group in the country, that's one of the reasons. And the other reason is content, possibly the most important, because when you watch performance, it's not just the Zulus who watch. The Sotho groups are also there, So it's content. When you offer content that appeals to people,
that people can relate to,
they will watch, regardless of the language, they will watch.
But do you think SABC One was getting a special preference compared to others where better programs were placed on SABC One?
No.
Because one might argue and say that Generations was as its own a program with a bit of dash of Basotho and the Zulus. Why not SABC too?
No, SABC One did not get any preferential treatment, even though sometimes we argued for it, that, we bring in the numbers, we bring in the money, give us more, to do more, But no, money was always like equitably distributed and, so preferential treatment, no.
Was there a period where you thought, as a commissioning editor and a programmer, we said no to this proposal, but it moved across to a pay channel and it performed beyond what we thought? And is there a program that you said, this one was one of my best?
I think I will choose not to answer one of my best, because it's like asking me if it's, like which of your children is your favorite child, So I think there's lots of shows that I'm proud of. A show that moved across, I'm trying to think. There's reasons why shows would move across. Because funding, especially, is one of those reasons. Because of funding problems in the SABC, producers can't wait for you to sort your problems out, and they would go across. I can't think of an example right now of something like that, but definitely, without naming titles, sometimes you would watch something on the other channel and think that should have been with us, But people will go where they feel like. But the problem with the SABC has, to a large extent, been the funding. The funding model is not working.
Do you think Isibaya would have done way, way better had it been with SABC?
Isibaya? Maybe, because it was popular, yes, but in terms of numbers, and I'm speaking, I'm not sure if numbers improved later, but even by the time I left, the SABC was still beating them on the numbers. But it was popular, and I'm sure it could have done much better numbers-wise on SABC.
Ma'am Clara, at the tail end of your career, you look back. You look back at SABC One as a channel, you look back at the programs that you were involved in, directly or indirectly, including Gospel Awards. How would you describe your journey within SABC? From 1983 up until you said, I'm dropping the microphone, I'm going to rest.
I think, personally, when I do something, it doesn't matter what. I give it my all. So I think what I am proud of is I did my best. In everything that I did my best. And I think the judge is the viewers, And I think it's also good to just reflect, because sometimes things don't quite work. It's important to go back and say, why didn't it work, and try and improve on whatever didn't work. But yeah, I think I'm happy with everything that I did.
Neo Matsunya.
Yeah.
Bravos. In fact, a group of 4. I'm sure they make you happy. Though one is late.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they make you happy. And why?
I think where luck comes in for me is landing on a platform that eventually evolved to be SABC1. But the success of SABC1 was planted way before SABC1. When you speak of Aboneo, when we were at drama department, one of the challenges we identified was because, you remember I said there was no TV training,
Yes.
Therefore there were no script writers. And the script writers were white people. That's why some of us from the dubbing department had to translate. And some things get lost in translation. And we made it our mission. We had a visionary manager, Veronica Blanchard, who was pushing for development of Black writers, which is why we started writing internally. We are now being exposed to the process, the writing and so we're given a chance to write, but at some stage it got stopped. I just wrote one series for payment, just one. It got stopped because you can't be a referee and player.
Same time.
You see? But then we looked at how we train Black writers. That is how that project where Aboneo were trained, to produce did it include all aspects? I don't remember, but that's how that training project, to create Black professionals. And yeah, that thinking did not stop with them. I mean, it continued and it happened. It may not be happening now because of financial challenges, but I'm sure the sentiments are still there that, we train our own professionals.
Lately, over the years, we've seen, especially television actors, we've seen our legends always asking for donations on social media. And the blame is always placed at a public broadcaster for royalties not being paid, production companies offshore changing the artists, or even the artists themselves often saving. Where should we place the blame and how can we nip this in the bud?
I think the problem is multi-pronged. And one hears all these rumors that, maybe producers are not paying people their due, and the SABC is not paying people enough. But the SABC goes through a budget process for each program, and so artist fees would be part of that budget, which gets rigorous scrutiny from the finance people, and comparisons are made with other projects of the same caliber. And maybe it's because the SABC itself does not have enough money. The funding model for the SABC is not working, and it's a cry we've had over the years, that because if you're a public broadcaster, you have mandate. So when you have mandates that the commercial channels don't carry, where does the money come to cover the mandate? So whatever the SABC has got must cover everything, and SABC must perform. And so it becomes a challenge financially. And a solution has to be found for funding the SABC. And maybe the industry as a whole must come together and put like benchmark fees for lead actors and the types of genres. And I know when they analyze the budget, they say they're checking, but maybe the process should be more transparent and open, and maybe the artists themselves need to have some representation into setting up those benchmarks. I think the other thing is, yes, it may be controversial that each of us are, I don't think the people in the SABC feel they are paid enough themselves, But at the end of the day, you are responsible for your own finances. And I think being a freelancer is a very, very difficult thing because it's seasonal. For 3 months or 6 months, you have a job, and then for 12 months, you have nothing. It's very difficult. I'm not sure how people manage, but clearly they are not managing by the looks of the cries you hear every day. Is there a solution? I'm not sure. Other than as a person in charge of your own life, and
live within your means.
You live within your means, but also uyagereza, you don't look at acting and the SABC alone. Maybe that's the solution.
Yes.
Because if jobs are seasonal, what do you do out of season? You sit and wait. Of course, whatever money you've put aside is going to be depleted. So what is the solution? I think the answer should also be asked to the people themselves.
The artists.
Yes. And a solution has to be found. I don't know. I know there's talks with the Department of Arts and Culture, but I'm not sure where it's taking the industry, whether it's happening. I know there's just a lot of discontent, but when do people sit at a table and really talk and honestly interrogate the issues, but also look at where does this money come from? Because the SABC as the SABC and looking at currently, it's scary. I'm not sure how they make it from day to day. I'm not sure. Because it doesn't seem to be lots of advertising coming through. Government funding is not coming through. So where does it come from?
Ma, currently, what are you doing?
Me,
Apart from retiring, because your skill cannot be.
I'm having
left in those
fun.
days.
I'm having fun doing nothing. I've worked for 35 years. I'm resting. But you know,
I would prefer that there should be an advertising ombudsman. Audiences of some radio stations do not have the same value as audiences of other radio stations. However, in some defense, they will say that, look, there is more money with these audiences. But the other thing is, one has to compare the brands exactly that are being advertised on a station that has got fewer audiences, but and a station that has got a bulk of audiences.
Why don't we have a station that caters for colored community at national level? Right?
See now.
Now that you